Welcome to Hope Talks Podcast with Grayson Willis and Pastor Margaret Michael, where you'll hear inspiring stories that are filled with hope and good news in Jesus Christ. You can also search for our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and TuneIn. We would love your feedback and invite you to take a short, anonymous survey. You can find the link to the survey in the show notes.
Welcome to today's broadcast of Hope Talks. I'm Grayson Willis.
And I'm Pastor Margaret Michael.
Thanks for tuning in today, and today we're joined by Craig Orndorff. Craig, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. Craig's here to share his testimony with us today. Craig, just start out telling us a little bit about where you're from and about how you grew up.
I'm originally from Bethesda, Maryland. Was there until I was about 14, and my parents they decided to move south, and it was a big culture shock. But we moved to Louisa County, Virginia, which is big difference from Bethesda, Maryland. So it was a huge adjustment for me, definitely. But I think it turned out for the best.
So how old were you when that happened?
I was 14.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just halfway through my freshman year in high school.
So the school, was that a big difference too? The school?
Oh boy, it was major difference.
Night and day?
Very much so. So it was going from a very much a suburban, city, if you look at Bethesda, Maryland, versus little Louisa County, Virginia is very rural. So it still is. And,
yes, it is.
And so it was a big shock for me.
You're lucky if you can find a coffee shop or a...
Yeah, it was a big deal when they put a stoplight in.
Yeah.
One horse town, huh?
Well, they had a few horses, but no stoplights.
Yeah, that is, I can't imagine. Like, I've pretty much always lived in a rural setting, so going from that type of a setting to Louisa would be an adjustment.
Really was.
And even when you came to Louisa, it wasn't as grown up as it is now, right? Like they...
No, like I said, it was a big deal when they got the stoplight
Yeah.
up there. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So did you grow up going to church?
Really, as a kid up in Maryland, church for me, I went to a Baptist church up there, and for the most part, it was either Christmas or Easter
Gotcha.
when I would go to church
Yeah.
at that time. My parents got more involved in church when we moved to Virginia, and I did attend fairly regularly at the little Barbersville Baptist Church when I was growing up there.
Yeah. Small town USA.
No doubt.
Anything foundational, particularly when y'all moved to Virginia and got a little more involved in church, maybe when you came to make that decision for yourself for Christ?
Honestly, I made that decision. I'm doing air quotes here. I made that decision when I was about 12, and it was more to please my family than any real feeling I had. I didn't even know what I was doing, and I knew all the right answers, and I said it all right, and I got baptized up there and everything. But again, it was just for show, and really, it was just for show for a long time after that, to be honest with you, and I really didn't accept Christ until I was in my 30s, and when it really hit me what it was all about. It wasn't just about me saying I was a Christian. It was about having a relationship.
Yeah, we can have a lot of knowledge
Yep.
in our head.
Yeah.
It's a long way from your head to your heart.
It definitely is. There's no doubt about it.
It
I could
is
quote scripture, and I knew exactly what to say to everybody. There's all the right answers, but it was just, that's all it was.
Yeah, it wasn't that relationship where you wanted Jesus more than anything. You wanted to please him. It was rules and regulations and saying the right things at the right time. And yeah. So in your 30s, how'd that come about?
It was really, it was after Olivia and I had been married, and again, this is it's kind of a foretelling of what would happen later. I said even to her, I could say all the right things, and at one point, I was even though I really wasn't saved, one of the churches that we had gone to, the church that we got married in, wanted to send me to seminary. And I'm very thankful that never happened.
Yeah.
That could have, I don't know what would have happened had I gone at that time.
Right.
But Olivia, just her example. After we were married, it was real. It wasn't show.
Yeah.
It wasn't about what it was. For me, I was impressing people. I was leading Bible studies, and I was a Sunday school teacher and doing all these things. And I mean, it was an act.
Yeah.
And but being married to Olivia, I could see the real deal, and it changed me. And that's basically one evening we were getting ready to go to bed, and I got emotional, and I just said, look, I don't know, this is all just a show. And I wanted her to be there when I really accepted Christ.
Yeah.
And we prayed together, and that's where it happened.
Yeah.
How did you and Olivia meet? How did that come about?
We actually worked at the same place, and I wasn't her boss, but we worked at Lowe's together, and we just got to talking, just as friends in the aisles. We'd run into each other and talked a little bit, and we really liked each other, and it just one thing led to another, and next thing you know, I was asking her to go to a football game with me. So
That's how it started, huh?
That's exactly how it
The
started.
Isle of Lowe's.
That's right.
What about Olivia? I mean, I know not everyone knew Olivia, but what was, when you all started talking in the aisles, what made you go, this might go somewhere?
She was just very genuine. I mean, there was nothing put on at all about her.
Right.
She was exactly who she was, no matter who you were. It was just different.
Yeah.
It was just, there's no pretense or anything there. And it was very different.
It was a good football game.
I don't even remember the result, but it was, it was. I mean, it was for me anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Company makes a difference, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that when you talk about somebody, I never remember a message they preached, but the Lord was speaking. So it wasn't the football game, it was the result of what came from.
Right.
Yeah.
I think they won, but I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if you want to share a little bit about your and Olivia's journey and just, how God was with y'all during that time.
Okay. Up to that point, we were married for probably 11 or 12 years. Things were good, normal. We were happily married, and kind of got cheap. She always had some medical issues. Before she even was diagnosed with cancer, she had a bad heart problem. She had to have 2 heart ablations, and it was at one point she got rushed to the emergency room, and they had to defibrillate her to get her heart to come. So I guess they stop it and then restart it, basically. That was really scary. But we kind of got blindsided with the cancer diagnosis. It was supposed to be a kind of a routine gallbladder issue. Because she had really bad pain in her side one day. We were leaving church, and she said, "This is really bad." And she said, "I might need to go to the emergency room." So we went to the emergency room, and they did all kinds of X-rays and MRIs and you name it. And they just thought it was a gallbladder problem, but they did see a mass in her near her gallbladder. But all the testing and all the blood tests and everything else had come back. They thought it was just a benign tumor and didn't amount to anything. They said, well, while we're in there, we'll take care of that too. Well, once they got to it, they realized that it was cancerous, and it had spread already to many of her organs, her ovaries and her colon, and that's what it was. It was stage 4 colon cancer, and So they came in the middle of surgery. They stopped. I guess they kept her unconscious, and they came to talk to me. And they told me it was cancer, and I broke down pretty. It just blindsided.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Even beforehand, they were like, "Oh, it's not that big a deal because the tests are all fine. It doesn't look. It just looks like some benign growth." But then they came and they said, "No, it's not benign. It's definitely cancerous," and it had spread. It was all through a lot of her organs, and at any rate, that was a tough one. And it was really hard for me that evening because they were taking her up to her room and they told me, well, we don't want you to say anything to her about it until we have a chance to talk to her in the morning. Just tell her the doctors need to talk to her. And when I got up to the room with her, that wasn't going to happen because as soon as she opened her eyes, the first thing out of her mouth to me is, "Craig, do I have cancer?" And I was just devastated. I couldn't lie to her, but I didn't say anything. I just kept saying, "The doctors will talk to us in the morning. Doctors will talk to us in the morning. I don't know exactly what everything is. They'll tell us everything in the morning." That was tough. That was a hard night. And from there, she never wavered. Her faith was strong through it all. I mean, I don't know how she. Thankfully, it wasn't me because I don't know that I could be as strong as she was. She had a new procedure called HIPEC at Johns Hopkins, which was not something that they hadn't done here in America. It was something that they were doing in Europe, and what that was, it was basically like a 10-hour surgery where they removed anything unnecessary from her and filled her with chemo fluid. That was a tough surgery, and she was just tough. They said she'd be in the hospital for, I think, 4 to 6 weeks. So I was ready to stay up there with her in the hospital for 4 to 6 weeks at Johns Hopkins. After 2 weeks, she was ready to go. She wanted out of there, and sure enough, they let her go. And and at any rate, from there forward, it was chemo pretty much every other week for about 8 years. They basically told her that she would be on chemo as long as she lived, and there was no possibility of a cure. And they even had told her that it probably would be 2 to 3 years. It would be her life expectancy. We thought that everything had cleared from her abdomen, but it spread to her lungs, and we didn't know that until later tests. More surgeries, more chemo, all kinds of different chemo back and forth. This didn't work this time, but we'll try it next time. It just kept going on and on and on, and she never wavered. One of her favorite quotes is from a Star Wars movie. She loves Star Wars, and one of her favorite quotes was by Han Solo, is "Never tell me the odds." And that's one thing that she used to tell her doctors was, "You don't know. You don't know. Only God knows how long I have."
Yeah.
And she just, that was her attitude always, and it really was inspiring to me. As much as it was sad watching her go through all this, it was just how tough she was, and how faithful she was. But at any rate, all that being said, the lungs got worse and worse. That was really hard to deal with, and eventually she couldn't read anymore. So she was asking me to read things to her, and she thought it was just her vision going bad. And it turned out that her oncologist wanted her to do a MRI on her brain just in case, and they found cancer in her brain as well. So she did her first radiology treatment on a Friday. Saturday, she was so sick she couldn't even get up to walk, so I called 911 to have an ambulance come and take us to the emergency room, and that was where she never left the hospital. That was it. and she passed away on February 10th this past year. And she was so, even on her deathbed, she was making jokes, and she was they were keeping her medicated to keep her comfortable, but she was still, and when she was coherent, she was making jokes, she was quoting scripture. It was unreal to me to see how strong she was. And I know she's in heaven. I know she's in a better place than any of us. She's in the presence of God, and that's right where she wants to be and where she always wanted to be.
And another thing about Olivia that was always so impressive is she didn't just sit at home once she was diagnosed.
No.
She volunteered.
Yep.
I mean, she spent many hours here at the church volunteering, whatever it was that needed to be done, whether it was at the front desk, whether it was at, helping Edie with database stuff. Like, she just worked with Best Week Ever, and she had such a heart and compassion, too, for other people who had cancer, and she made the cancer bags.
Oh yeah, that's still a big deal. It's amazing that she has a legacy over there at the hospital, and she volunteered at the hospital too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
She was a volunteer while she was going through chemo. She was volunteering to help others in the cancer center, and she did start that rookie bag program, where she was making up bags for new patients with all kinds of things that you don't think about that you're going to need when you're going through chemo for the first time. And she just had a heart for that, and she wanted people to be able to deal with it better. Yeah. And I'm so thankful that it's called Olivia's Rookie Bags now, and it's actually I'm very thankful that one of my 2 life groups is carried on the tradition. They've committed to that, and they're doing Olivia's Rookie Bags now, and still to this day.
Amazing.
I mean, I've known people now that have been diagnosed with cancer, friends that I've had before, that they go in there and they get one of those, and it's so heartwarming to hear that.
Yeah.
That it makes an impression on someone.
Yeah.
She's still
making a difference, right?
A lot of people.
Yeah.
That's so powerful.
It really is.
Yeah, well, I know 2 things about Olivia that I think about. Number one, she's a fighter. You said like that quote from Han Solo about never tell me the odds.
Right.
Because, I feel like she probably made it longer than any of the doctors probably thought. I don't know all
definitely.
that, but I feel like, and then like Margaret said, she was a servant. She served even when she was going through difficult times, maybe when it would have been easier to just, lay out or whatever. She served and was an inspiration to those around her, and definitely made an impact and is still making an impact. And talk a little bit about how God helped you, not just through that time, but since her passing, how he's continued to help you get through.
Honestly, with a lot of my time, even as a Christian, even as a believer, and even since I accepted Christ as my Savior, I was angry. I was very angry for a lot of the things that were going on. It didn't make me not believe. It didn't change my faith, but I was questioned so much why, from the heart issue, we thought we got that beat, and then the cancer, and then just every time you thought you were making a little headway, something else would happen, and it was just I questioned, and I was a little bit angry at the time, but after she died, I went to some dark places, and I am so thankful for so many people from this church, present company included, that were by my side, praying for me, literally by my side. People were stopping by. People from other campuses were stopping by. people coming in to sing to her. It was just amazing. My family was great. Friends that I've had for years were just so supportive. And I saw God in action through their actions. And it sounds funny to say that, and that people may not understand it, but this Olivia's passing has actually strengthened my faith. I mean, I can't even tell. I'm a different person. Even since just then, it's just, I feel like it's a day and night difference the way I view things, because I can see now all the things that were happening. I could see God's hand in everything. The impact she had on so many people. She also did those coffee scriptures where she'd go on social media and she would invite people to come watch her she would do little Bible studies right there and this is while she was fighting. I mean,
yes, absolutely.
And she was very committed to that. It was she really studied. She really got into that. And just how could I be negative or have questioned my faith when I had that example of somebody who, with everything she went through and all the things that she fought, had stronger faith than anybody I knew. And it's inspirational to me still. And just to see God's hand in everything. When I was going to those dark places, somebody would text me out of the blue. Somebody would call me out of the blue. And that's not just coincidence. That's somebody showed up at the wrong bank when I was working at the bank out of the blue. And I was like, hey, I didn't know you had an account here. I don't. I'm at the wrong bank. And then Jim, and I'll never forget that. It was just he just sat down in my office with me. Out that day, I was such a dark place for me, but he just, it's like he could sense. It was like God drew him there to speak to me, and that was even before Olivia passed away. It was just we were struggling, and she was struggling, and I didn't like showing her when I was struggling. So I'd kind of carry around a little cloud over my head sometimes, and it's like he just showed up at the right, perfect time to help me with that. But that just happens so much, and even now I've formed friendships and bonds with people here that would have never happened had one thing not led to another, and us eventually being here at this church.
I remember that Olivia came by herself for a while, right? Did she come to church by herself for a while?
Yeah, she did for a little while, yeah.
That memory just came back to me. I couldn't.
She did. There was times where, again, my anger.
I get it.
It kept me out sometimes, and it's not. I'm a little ashamed to admit that, but that's where I was.
But it's just we're just being honest, and the people listening today understand.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to hear this today,
Right.
But I think your life changed for the better. Because if I remember right, when you started coming to the church, you began to build some of those bonds.
Oh yeah, she pushed me too. It was kind of like a prod sometimes, but even certain things. And I'm not so sure she didn't talk to some of the men at this church to also drag me along, but because that might be too much of a coincidence. But some people. She would tell me to join this group and join that group. Why don't you go talk to this guy? Why don't you go talk to that guy? And next thing I know, hey, somebody's texting me. I don't even know who this is. They just invited me somewhere.
That's
and she might have had a hand in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely I was definitely being pushed along, dragged along sometimes.
I think about that. I think, Olivia wanted you to have a good community around you. She knew what was coming. And I think about Like, I see you now, and you have, like, man, you have a strong group of men around you. And I think about where would you be had you not had that?
That's a scary thought.
Right? Like, it was dark even with having people. I just don't know how people do it without having that relationship with God and with others around them.
I felt that at times I was inconsolable, especially while she was in the hospital that last time. I was so distraught. And people would just show up, and they'd walk out in the hallway with me because I knew I was about to lose it, and I would lose it. And they would just stay with me.
Yeah.
They didn't, no judgment.
Yeah.
It was just, I'm here as long as you need me to be here. Yeah. And I loved it, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah. I just recently did a service for a gentleman that passed very unexpectedly, left a family behind, and something that you said just made me think of something that I said to the congregation that day at the service. I said, over the next days, months, and years, someone from this family is going to come to your mind. Please don't miss sending that text, making that phone call, stopping by, because those are divine appointments. Yeah. Like, they need to hear from you. If God places them on your mind, then they need to hear from you. And you're giving testimony to that in your life, that they were at the right times, the wrong bank, but the right time,
exactly.
Type of thing. Yeah.
Not a coincidence.
No.
And we've enjoyed having you on Tuesday mornings, men's Bible study, and
bad jokes and all.
I was gonna say you're our resident joke teller.
Oh yeah, boy.
And when people
no, bad joke teller is what he's trying to say.
When people tell jokes, I think you even recently had a joke dedicated to you.
I sure did. It was so bad they dedicated it to me. So. Well, I'll be telling bad dad jokes for the rest of my life. So,
Craig, just anything else about your testimony that you want to share? Maybe something that we haven't asked you already, or something that you would like to share? Maybe even, since we call this program Hope Talks, what is bringing you hope in this time?
Just the bonds that I've made through God. I know that. He's put bumpers and guardrails and all kinds of things in my path to keep me sane and to keep me joyful. And I didn't know what joy meant before all this. I know that you can be joyful and not have a big smile on your face, and that's something we've been actually studying.
Right, yeah.
And it's just reassuring to know that that I can still have joy even with all that's happened, and that gives me hope, and it gives me one thing I want to do. I do still. I'm involved heavily in Relay for Life, and it's something that I'm not going to do a commercial or anything here, but I just feel like doing things like that for people. I just want to I want to make people, I want to help somebody. I saw that that's all Olivia ever wanted to do, was help people. And that's what I want to do, even if it's just to make somebody laugh by telling a horrible joke or encourage somebody who's down for whatever reason. That's what gives me hope, and that's what keeps me going forward, is because I know that I could be that person that's there when somebody else needs it.
Well, thank you, Craig, for joining us today on Hope Talks and sharing your testimony with us. It's been great to have you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's broadcast of Hope Talks. We pray that as you've heard Craig Orndorff's testimony today, that it truly has been a half hour of hope for your life. May God bless.
Hope Talks is sponsored by Church of the Nazarene Harrisonburg in partnership with Sunshine Ministries.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast of Hope Talks. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe for updates in the latest episodes. Also, if you're in the Harrisonburg-Rockingham County area, we invite you to listen on the radio each Sunday at noon on 1470 AM or 102.1 FM WBTX.